Okay, welcome to PasswordsCon again. We're glad everybody is here. Just some reminders. As we've announced before, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Prismacloud and Vanta, our diamond sponsors, also our gold sponsors, Adobe and SEMGREP. It's along with their support and also the support of everybody, including yourselves and all the volunteers and everyone that makes this conference possible and thus PasswordsCon possible as well. So, cell phones. If you have a cell phone on you, please put it on silent so that everybody can enjoy without any disruption. Photos. Please don't take besides Las Vegas photo policy is not to take photographs of anybody without their consent, whether they're a speaker or whether they're an attendee or whether they're inside or outside or whatever the story is. I believe the speaker said it's fine to take photos if you want to of her or her content. But anybody else in the room, please don't take any pictures that includes anyone else without their consent. HMAC, yeah, we use it everywhere. I think many of us think that we are quite good at how we've secured it. So looking forward to this talk, especially the HMAC trap, security or illusion. So we'd like to invite Izzny to handle this part for us.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about HMAC. Is something, like he said, is everywhere. We use it quite often, even though we sometimes don't realize that that's the thing. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. So my name is Marluan Cleary, but I also go as Izzny. It's better to remember that way. Currently, I'm a penetration tester. I love to find out how to break into things, how to fix things. And I also like to share that knowledge in a blog that I host on hexbigheads.com. And this content will also be up there. So if you guys want to take pictures, it's fine. But other than that, it will be available later tonight. So I love the beach. I'm from Puerto Rico. So that is my go-to. Love sushi and yeah, pandas. So that's my spirit animal. So that's a little bit about myself. So today, what we're going to be talking about is a little bit about what HMAC is. I will have some demos. They're actually pre-recorded videos because I didn't want to test the demo gods on this today. So we're just going to go ahead and have the pre-recording parts. And then we're going to go over a little bit of best practices, what things you guys can do, whether you're a developer or in any realm on the cybersecurity field, what things you should be looking out when it comes down to HMAC. And then towards the end, we'll have some takeaways and questions that you guys may want to ask me. So out of every single topic that I can possibly have, why HMAC? So like the quote says there, security is not a product, it's a process. So before I became a penetration tester, I was a system security engineer. And my job was to go through the designing phases of a system and trying to figure out what is the best way to make them cybersecurity resilient and secure. Now, I go to work one day and my client says, you need to sit in this call and see what is going on with HMAC. And at that point, I did not know what it was. I'm being quite honest about it. And so I sat down, and it came down to three things at the end of that meeting. Do we have to implement it? Can we accept the risk and not have it? Or if we do have it, how long is it going to take for us to have it implemented? Now, what it became just a research of a high-level overview of the threat landscape with or without it, it became like a challenge for me. So I needed to understand, okay, how hard is it for somebody to implement the HMAC, right? Is it going to be just a few lines of code? Is it going to break something else? So I needed to take it upon myself and figure that out. So before I did all of that, I needed to find out what HMAC was. So we know what MAC is. So the message authentication code is a short string of bits used to verify the integrity and authenticity of a message, right? So a message is generated with a shared key between the server and the client. and that message alongside with the share key creates the MAC value, right? So unlike hashes, the MAC has a better resistance when it comes down to tampering, because it requires a secret key in order for it to work. It also ensures the integrity. Unlike the digital signatures, you will always know who sent that message based on that. Now, we know what MAC is, but what is HMAC, right? So the HMAC also attached the hashing function, which I'll show you guys here in a minute. So we have here the sender, right? It's gonna have the same share key between them and the receiver. We have the message, and the combination of the share key and the message creates the MAC value. Once that message is sent over to the receiver, if they do match, that means that the data has not been altered. So the receiver end will go ahead and use that same key in that message and make sure that the value that he received is the same. If it doesn't match, then that means that the data has been altered, and well, there's a problem. You either have two things that will happen. Either the data packet will just drop, or you have to go ahead and reinitiate the transmission of that data set again. So HMAC comes along. So HMAC is just adding the hash base into the cryptographic function for MAC. So this will just have any cryptographic hash that you want to implement into it, and then it will just go ahead and generate a code and send it over alongside with the message. So why is it important? The HMAC just ensures the confidentiality, right? It's ensuring that all the sensitive information that is going to be accessible only for authorized systems. It also maintains the integrity. So all the data that has been sent is not being modified by nefarious people. And then it guarantees the availability that once it is actually what is intended and it goes where it needs to be, that you're gonna get that message. So in this case, HMAC, how does it work? So we have Alice here because she's the person of this year, and she wants to send a message to the Mad Hatter, right? So she has her message and she has a key that she shares with the Mad Hatter. Now, once she's done with the message, she's gonna go ahead and attach the HMAC value into the message. It's gonna send that over. Once that message is received by the Mad Hatter, if the secret key is going to compute the HMAC value that came alongside with the message. Once that is done, if it is good and has not been altered, everybody's happy, everybody can see their message. If they don't, then that means that there's some type of tampering going on. There's a mismatch between the values. Probably some logging and troubleshooting might have to happen, but we never know. So that is one of the main things that we need to be very careful about it. So things like the TLS will also use HMAC when it comes down to the authentication and the mismatching, and the rejection of connections if they don't match. So once I have all that information, send it over and in my brain, I needed to figure out, okay, how do I make this work? So I created a simple client and server Python environment in my home lab, right? And then there's 4 things that are very critical when it comes down to implementing HMAC. One of them, you need to import the HMAC library. You also have to make sure that once you do that, you select the hashing algorithm to import. So the hash lib in this particular scenario is just importing MD5, not the secure, but that's what we're going to start with. And then we're gonna go ahead and call for the secret key. Not also the greatest secret key, but it just get the point across. And after that, what is going to happen is I'm gonna go ahead and generate a message. That message is gonna go ahead and associate the secret key and put it into a hashing method for the MD5, and it's gonna send that over. This particular pieces of information is really important because it has to match between client and server. It cannot be different, otherwise the message is not gonna go. You're gonna have a fail. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that looks like. So in this particular scenario, on the left side, you guys are gonna see my server. It's gonna have a listening port on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, waiting for a connection from my local host. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start typing. Hello B-Sides, Las Vegas 2025. And from my client, I'm gonna go ahead and send that to my server. Now this is gonna show us that the message has been received. There is my HMAC value right over there. And then it was verified. So both computations between the HMAC and the server and the client is the same. So I had no issues there. Great. So next okay, so how do I go about trying to figure out what happens if somebody gets my message and the HMAC value? So we're just gonna go ahead and see if we can crack it. So we go to Hashcat and assign it the MD5 mode because that's what I had. And then there it is. So now I have my HMAC value, I have my messages, and I have the secret key. So this was a major milestone for me because I'm like, okay, so what else can I do with it, right? So the next step is like, let me just go ahead and go a little bit farther and just go ahead and try SHA-256 just for the heck of it, because why not? So go ahead and send that message, hello again, to my server. I got the SHA-256 there. It was verified. All is good. And then I'm just going to go ahead and go to Hashcat and see if I'm going to be able to get away with that again. So in this case, it took a little longer, but I still was able to find the secret key within RockU there. So now that I know how it looks when it does work, I needed to figure out what happens if I am able to intercept the data packet. So that's when we started to look into data packet manipulation. So for this particular scenario, I use a Burp Suite B app called Nope. And I had to create and finagle with the client server in order to get the HTTP request crafted so this demo could work. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. So here I already have Nope proxy already installed. So the first thing that we need to do in order to get this to work is turn off the proxy setting from Burp Suite. So once we do that, we go into the Nope proxy. And once we're there, we're going to go into the server configuration settings. So here we're looking into our server information. So we're going to use the 8080. We're looking for our local port and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as our listener. We're going to start our intercept also. And once we do that, we're just going to go over to my client and server environment. And I'm going to see what happens when I turn that on. So I'm going to go ahead and type a message. And you can see that the connection has been established from my local host into the server, but nothing came through, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go into the Burp Suite, and I can see that my message is there and the HMAC value is also there. So I want to say, so what happens if I just modify it a little bit before sending the packet over to the server? So I added some stuff in the message like, hello, are you there? And I go ahead and forward that message over. Now, based on all the information that we have discussed so far, it should fail, right? Because the message and the HMAC value should not be the same. And that's what happened. We have an integrity check fail right there. meaning that whatever I send, the HMAC value of that message should not be that. Therefore, it didn't work out. So I went ahead and tried to send another message, just like, hello, somebody there? Same thing here. Connection is established. I go back to Burp Suite, and this time I'm just gonna go ahead and send that over. It was better for me to see if it's actually working. So integrity verified, everything is good. The HMAC value is the same, no issues there. So what happens if I try to go ahead and modify the HMAC value instead of the message? So I went ahead, established the connection again, and then I'm gonna just change a few of the characters of the HMAC value, and I'm gonna send that over. And in this particular scenario, it also failed. So the server is doing everything in their end to make sure that whatever the message is, the HMAC value is also the same. If it's not, it's just gonna go ahead and discard it. So now that we know that, I wanted to see how does this look in Wireshark, right? So go ahead and have my little server and client going on. And I'm just gonna go ahead and just craft a message. It was verified, everything was good. I go to Wireshark looking for that data packet. And I'll just go ahead and follow the TCP dump for that. I'm gonna zoom in because I wear glasses, so I can see. And once I have that, I'm gonna craft that into a hash.txt file. And I'm gonna take all of that into Hashcat and see if I can crack it and get the key. So after a long time thinking, and there is my key. So now that we have covered a little bit of how the client and server communication kind of interacted, from this point on, we're just gonna see a little bit of examples of different attacks and methods that people uses when it comes down to HMAC. All of the values that you're gonna see here for the algorithm is gonna be SHA-256. And the word list that I'll be using is a crafted one. So I'm not gonna use RockU or we'll be here forever. So very just simple proof of concepts when it comes down to this. So we have the information. We know that the keys are the most valuable pieces of information when it comes to HMAC. So once I do that, can I do more? So in this case, let's say that we have been able to get information from somebody that is trying to log in into a server, right? So we have all that information, we have an admin user, we have their HMAC, and we know what the algorithm is. So we're just gonna go ahead and try to do a dictionary extract to brute force and see if we can get the key. Now, once we have that key, then anything can go, right? Let's see if that goes any faster. All right. So I was able to find that user was using secret123. And now that I have the actual key, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a message. So anything that goes from this point on, when it comes down to the messages, I can introduce a malicious payload in there. It doesn't matter. The server is gonna take it as true because I have the one important piece of that, and that's gonna be the key. So in this case, I'm just gonna go ahead and send a message called like I found you, and I'm just gonna go ahead and see if that is gonna come back as a true, and then it was received successfully. All right, so next we have, what do we do if we modify the timestamps? So in this particular scenario, we have an HMAC value that is protected by timestamps, which everybody should use when it comes down to implementing HMAC anyways. The server is going to check for the timestamps value when I send my messages over. And if there is any type of discrepancy of type of replay attack is happening, the actual HMAC value and the message is going to change throughout a period of time. So at that point, the payload itself is going to be too old, and the server is going to be, you know what, I don't know what you're trying to do. This is not working. It already expired. So here I'm just verifying that the HMAC value is true. Oh no. There you go. So I know that the HMAC value is true, and that's right. So then I try it again, and it went to a false. So that means that the timestamp itself within the HMAC value on the server has already changed. Which is what we see right here as a result. So again, it is invalid, it's too old, I don't recognize it. The server is gonna go ahead and try it again. And that's the best way to counteract what we're talking about, replay attacks. So now that we know what replay attacks work, how about timing attacks? So the timing attack is a little bit of a flaw when it comes down to it. So if you have a string comparison with an equal on the actual HMAC implementation, the attacker can actually measure how long would it take to get the right HMAC value. And so in this case, I know that the false comparison, because I changed something in the MAC, is approximately 320 milliseconds, right? So what if I just take a few of the characters out of the HMAC value and see what I get for timing? So I still have a comparison of time. So what if I just remove everything and just try the first character here for the HMAC value? So now it's 5 seconds. So within the timing attack, we have a way that the attackers can indicate, okay, I am getting close to knowing what the HMAC value it is for this. And they just keep like hammering towards everything until they get the right amount and the right characters in here. So the closer they are to get it right, the less amount of time will be on that counter. Next, we have the logic bugs. So this is something that has been seen in the wild before. It's just a matter of understanding how to implement the logic when it comes down to the server and the presence of the HMAC in here. So in here, I'm just gonna go ahead and paste a different message that it was originated before with a different HMAC value that is probably not what hello world should be. And once I do that, everything is gonna come back to true. So if the attackers send whatever garbage they want to send, whatever malicious payload is in there, the server doesn't know how to respond to that. So everything is going to be true, even if the HMAC value is not accurate or if the message itself is not accurate. So that will eventually get you your actual server compromised at that point. So we also have HMAC presence on Java Web Tokens. And in this one, in this particular scenario, we have a user that goes by admin1, low privilege person, just somebody, right? And then we have here what their Java Web Token looks like. Once we go over that, we can just do an analysis of it, and we break it down. Okay, so we have a hatching algorithm for SHA-256 there. We know what type of token it is. We know the username and the role and its signature. So in order for all of the Java Web Tokens to work in a secure manner, you should have the signature requirement flag implemented there. Because if you don't, I'll show you guys what does. But so we have an admin1, the user, and a secret key. So we know what all of those things look like because I was able to do a brute force attack because my secret key is not the best. Now, in order for us to make sure that the Java Web Tokens are secure, we need to make sure that the header is showing up, the algorithm none is not there. You always should have the signature requirement in there because otherwise the server will skip the verification and it will accept any token that sends through without the key. All right, so we're down to the best practices. So everything around HMAC revolves around the keys. So the stronger the keys, the better you are. We should not be using user passwords when it comes down to creating keys. It's gonna be probably easy to crack. So we wanna make sure that we avoid that. Once the key is compromised, then everything will work and until that key is changed. So unless you change it, you will be compromised for the duration of that key on that server. I would recommend establishing a key management plan. Find out what length the key should be. Implement key rotation so that way you're not stuck with the same key for eternity or 6 months, depending on who you work with. Establish audits and revocation. So if there's something within the audit logs that you guys see that is kind of like iffy about it, then go ahead and revoke that key. Try to figure out the steps to issue a new one. Next, we need to make sure that all of those keys have a strong algorithm. SHA-256 is okay, RSA, SHA-3. All of those things will actually be able to help you guys secure those keys. Never hard code the keys in the configuration files. That's just not good practice. And apply least privilege. Not everybody needs to have access to all the keys. So make sure that those are also part of your key management plan. For securing the code, make sure that you include the timestamps and the nonsense, the nonce. That will help the server identify if there's any type of replay attack trying to happen, and everything was just gonna get dropped by it. So that's a good thing to do. Validate timestamps, rejected and reuse. Any expired messages, just get them thrown out. That will also alleviate the issues with the timing and attack replays. And also secure comparison functions. So in this case, you should have, if you're writing stuff in Python, you should have an HMAC compare digest. So it's just gonna make sure that it's gonna compare what the server is getting and what the client is sending. That way you don't have to go through any of the issues that you might encounter if you don't have that. For the Java Web Tokens, like I said, make sure that you have nice and strong keys also. Algorithm validation, just make sure that that flag is also included, that you don't have the alg none in there. And also key rotation. Make sure that you rotate those Java Web Tokens keys when you're signing them off. And for takeaway, so HMAC is still a way to protect from unauthorized access and message tampering and forgery. But it's going to be as strong as you implement those. So if you use strong algorithms, if you have the random generation of keys, and if you can go ahead and update the secret key and keep it safe, then you should not have any issues with HMAC at all. HMAC is not broken. It's just misused, mismanaged sometimes. So just, I don't want you guys to think that just because you have a strong algorithm, everything's just there. You need to make sure that you have the proper way to manage and safeguard those keys, because those keys are technically the key to the kingdom when it comes down to the server. And I think that is it. So I'm open for questions if anybody has one. Wow. Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming.
Oh.
To what extent and in what context do timing attacks on HMAC comparisons occur in the real world? In particular over the network would be relevant for my work, but in general.
In particular with what? I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
In particular over the network would be particularly relevant.
In this particular scenario, the timing replay, I already had access. So I'm just assuming a breach. So the likelihood of that happen is not as high as you would think on the regular, like on the network.
I don't necessarily think it's particularly likely, but I'd like to know other opinions because
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is something that I still need to delve into and research more, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take this one. Start with you.
Thank you. Thank you for this talk. I had a question about timestamp, the inclusion of the timestamp in the HMAC. So first of all, are there any best practices for the actual mechanics of doing that, like concatenating it to the payload or whatnot? And then the second question was, or I guess second part of that question is, do you have a recommended like maximum clock drift after which you would like no longer accept an expired timestamp, I guess?
So for the projects I was working on, we added the timestamp for 30 to 40 seconds. And that is gonna depend on your system. Because in my case, it was something that I cannot have too long or too short, because that will create a delay on whatever was gonna happen. Can't talk about it. But that is going to depend on your system and your architecture. So in my case, it was 30 to 40. That was based on the mission that it had back then, but it can be shorter. It can be probably 5 seconds.
I was wondering, did you actually implement a timing attack, or was it just sort of like theoretically? I mean, you noticed the timing was shorter for the shorter one. I just tried to I'm just curious because I've tried implementing timing attacks before, and it's extremely difficult for me. And I just was wondering if you had any tips.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
did it.
So in this particular case, it was an assumed breach, and it was like super simple. It was just a matter of understanding how the timing rotation it is. And you are right; it's gonna take longer because there's many sequences, and according to the longer of the algorithm, the more inputs you will have to have. So, no. I
Okay.
do want to,
Yeah.
but no. For this example, it's just a matter of showing you guys what the difference will be between a correct input and an incorrect one.
Yeah, I want to meet somebody who's actually successfully implemented timing attacks because I've even tried introducing artificially long timing delays, and it still doesn't work. I'm like, why is this not working? I don't. So I'd love to find somebody who can do it.
But another thing that and I know we all hear about all the buzzing about quantum computing. So that is something that it will affect all of this hashing algorithms, all of this implementation. So something that you guys need to also take into consideration once this old boom happened about quantum and all of the things that are going behind it, then we might need to find better implementations when it comes down to securing our hashes. And maybe time-based attack will actually be a lot shorter.
Okay, we've still got time for some more questions. Also, I mean, we can have it as a discussion as well. So if you would like to answer a question that's been asked, or if you have an example that fits in, you can do that as well.
Yeah, and just as part of the story, I don't know if they implemented it or not because I moved on from that project. So who knows? I did recommend it to implement it though.
Okay, let's go back here.
Hello, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So in some of the frameworks that I've worked in, I've seen mention of password-based key derivation functions. Do you have like any recommendations on whether or how to use those in deriving your shared secrets?
So I don't like the password derivation piece of things. I understand why people do it. It makes sense. But as far as the implementation of it for secret keys to HMAC, is it a good key? So those are the questions that you have to say. How long is it? How good of a key is it? And can you use it? Definitely don't use secret 123. Like that's just a given. But with all the changes about password length and all the things that we have to do now is like 20 characters long or all of that. So there might be some type of leeway that you can use them, but I just don't recommend that.
Cool. Any further questions? I was thinking about the best practices that you're mentioning over there. Was anyone in this morning's talk that could just remind everyone what there was an issue? No one here was in this morning's talk. Okay, I was hoping somebody could bring it up. Okay, it was about the secret keys and about how you keep and about how everyone loves putting their code on GitHub and sending all of these secret keys. And if you get a chance, watch it as well because it ties in well with this talk because it shows just how bad the exposure is of secret keys and the keys used for the derivation of HMAC keys that people are just leaving lying around facing the internet. And yeah, anybody can just gain access. Obviously, it then takes the hard work out of doing all of this because your keys are now just lying around. And it's easy like that. So yeah, so that ties in well. You know, it keeps the thread going about how that best practice comes into your HMAC security as well. No more questions? If there's none, then we'd like to thank Izzny.
Thank you.